Welcome to the Pondcast, where we stop winging it and start getting strategic. This is the podcast from Go Duck Marketing and Media, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of marketing, using real-world examples from the brands, businesses, and everyday moments we all experience. Because marketing isn't just ads and social posts. It's happening all around us. This is the Pondcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Pondcast with Go Duck Marketing and Media. So today we're talking about vape shops. And you might wonder, what in the world do vape shops have to do with marketing? Well, you heard it in the intro that we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of marketing. So today we're talking about the ugly of marketing. And it seems like vape shops have appeared almost overnight in so many Appalachian towns. And you drive down a road, suddenly there are several within just a few miles of each other. And so today we want to explore, is that a coincidence? Is that policy gaps? Is it something more strategic? Is there something else going on under the surface that is basically playing a role in shaping what becomes normal in a community? So today, I'm really excited to announce that we have a guest with us, Greg Duckworth, who also just so happens to be my dad. But there is a very good reason why I have him on here, and I'm going to explain all of that. So my dad, Greg Duckworth, spent 26 years serving as a West Virginia state trooper, where he saw firsthand the impact that drugs and addiction has on individuals and communities. And then on top of that, after retiring from law enforcement, he continued serving the public and still does as the president of the county commission in Raleigh County. And now he also is the chairman of the board of the West Virginia First Foundation, which was an organization that is dedicated to funding addiction prevention efforts across the state. So his background actually gives him a very unique perspective on this exact issues and why issues like youth vaping are getting attention from community leaders. So thank you so much, Dad, for being our first guest on this podcast. What a nice
introduction.
Well, it's all true. So as county commissioner, what is it that made you start actually noticing vape shops kind of becoming a real issue in our community?
I think everyone saw them. I think that they were popping up everywhere, and they weren't subtle. When they pop up, they had flashing lights and signs and marijuana bling bling in the windows, and they were just attractive to kids. And then next thing you know, they're popping up, and then the high schools and junior highs all have kids vaping in the schools. I mean, it was just very obvious to not just local leaders. It was obvious to everyone. We started challenging some of their signage and things through county order. We can't write state law, but we can write county ordinance. So we tightened down on what some of those ordinances were, and it got immediate reaction from the educators in the county. It got immediate reaction from community members. My phone was burning up. People are happy to see these changes coming. So it was really a no-brainer as far as the flashing lights and these stores popping up everywhere.
So did you hear concerns specifically from parents or from teachers, other community leaders as to what was actually going on in these vape shops?
Yeah, the ironic thing is it was on everyone's radar because everyone sees them, but no one's really doing anything about it. So you start talking to some parents and some school teachers and see the vape problem, and we're looking at how to help the schools with the vape problem of the students by vape detectors in the bathrooms, and it become very obvious that we need to back out of that enough to take care of the problem on the front end before it gets in the schools. So it was a very united community effort. I think everyone was wanted to see these changes. So we first started out with, if you're already here, we can't make you leave. However, we can make the things moving forward. So our ordinance included some things like a vape store can't be within 1 mile of another vape store, and it can't be within a mile of a church or a school. There's just a list, a playground, things that are where you would see someone who's like 75% of their business is related to kids, like a YMCA or something to that effect. So going down the list and eliminating them out of the spaces in the community where our children are and where our churches are and our places of worship and those kind of things. So that was the beginning of it, as far as the county ordinance and the regulations we put on, and it hadn't been done. It was so new. There was no guideline. We come up with a lot of this stuff and just move forward with it.
So coming at it from even, can you kind of explain for people who might not know what the West Virginia First Foundation is and what the West Virginia First Foundation is working to do?
Yeah, so the West Virginia First Foundation had its first board meeting ever. It came off the ground in November of 23. And what the First Foundation is our Attorney General, who at that time was Patrick Morrissey, they led the charge on the lawsuits versus a multitude of drug manufacturers and drug distributors. Your bigger distributors, even the smaller. So anyway, at the end of the day, that settlement over about a 10-year period is supposed to maintain about $1.2 billion. So as we sit here today, there's somewhere around $370 million in that fund now. So that is for abatement. That money is for the West Virginians. It's for prevention, treatment, and recovery. That's the focus of the West Virginia First Foundation. So the First Foundation was formed by litigation, but it's not legislated. It was litigated. So these lawsuits, the Attorney General was representing the cities and the counties and municipalities and things like that. So the money in the pot is for those three things I just mentioned: recovery, treatment, and prevention. And it's a nonprofit private organization. So it's got 5 members that are appointed by the governor, and it's got 6 members who are elected around the state, where each region of our state is represented by that board.
So connecting kind of what you've done with the county commission and connecting the West Virginia First Foundation, do you think that this issue with the vape shops popping up everywhere, do you think that affects kids negatively in a way that they might, use drugs later? Would you consider vapes or nicotine products, stuff like that, to be kind of almost like the gateway into drug use?
Yeah. As a 26-year trooper, I would argue that marijuana was a gateway drug. You smoke marijuana if you get tired of it, and then the next thing they were doing Tylox or Dilaudid pills, things like that in the 90s in McDowell County. It became substance use disorder somewhere around 2014. But this has been a targeted region for these manufacturers of drugs way before it ever was defined as SUD. I was seeing in the 90s over a Tylox or Dilaudid pill, these grandchildren were putting bags over grandma's head and stealing money out of her bra. Those are the kind of things that were happening in my space before there was a definition for it. So moving into what you opened with in the marketing, so we are challenging the opioid epidemic with the settlement funds. Well, now fentanyl is coming along. Oxycontin's not so prevalent now, and I think we're targeted again. I think the different flavors that are in the vapes are addictive, and without a doubt, the nicotine and things are addictive. There's also THC in some of them. I mean, there's kids getting caught with vapes, and the regular person who don't use a vape don't know they're smoking marijuana right there, or something worse. And the bigger piece of it is that these things aren't regulated, not yet. The state's working on that, but our kids are inhaling things. We don't know what they are. They're straight out of China. They're the same people who brought us COVID is now sending us vapes and putting them in our stores. And then back to the marketing comment that you opened with, they're marketing the crap out of it. They're flashy. They're bright. They're attractive. They're easy to get in and out of. And so to answer your question, they are good at marketing, and they are bad players in our community. And yes, it's easy to get to, and it's a gateway to other things.
I think it's really interesting because I was talking to you about this earlier, that this is not new. This has been done before. This was done by cigarette companies, over years and years and years. And I was talking to you about there's there was a study done by Stanford University in the 90s on Joe Camel. I don't know if anyone watching this would remember who Joe Camel was, but he was a Camel Cigarettes had developed this marketing campaign with Joe Camel, and he was this cool cartoon camel who smoked, and kids were wearing him on their t-shirts, and he was in windows and all kinds of stuff. You could buy a cardboard cutout of him, all kinds of stuff. So there was a study done by Stanford University in the late 90s on a bunch of 6-year-old kids, and 98% of those 6-year-old kids could recognize Joe Camel just as well as they could recognize Mickey Mouse. And that was the study that led to regulations being put on the marketing for cigarettes and really just tobacco products. So now tobacco products, it can't be flashy, and you're not allowed to use these cartoon cool characters. There's things in place that make it really difficult. Even, if we were going to be advertising for a cigarette company, at GoDuck, if we were to do that, it wouldn't we wouldn't be allowed to. There's so many regulations against it. But that's not the same thing with vapes now, because it's such a new product, and it was a product that was made originally to be a way to stop your nicotine addiction, and now it's ended up creating this whole new group of people who might not have been addicted to cigarettes, but now they're addicted to vapes. So I think it's really interesting to think that way. And these vapes, from a marketing standpoint too, are the way that these vape shops are popping up is also pretty purposeful, because the more normal something becomes, the easier it is to do it. And marketing is consistency. And I think we talk about that literally all the time, that marketing is consistency. You have to be consistent. You have to be in front of people's faces to where it starts to not even feel like advertising anymore. And I think that's the way that these vape shops have gotten. It's like they're so normalized.
So let me add to what you just said, in that the study the Stanford University did on the 6-year-olds from the 90s. None of them had a cell phone in their hand, and these bad players in our community are reaching a wider perspective, or a wider view, and more of our youth. Because I know a story of a kindergartner in Raleigh County caught with a vape. About every grade school and up have a cell phone in their hand. So the marketing tools now are so much better and bigger, but they can also be worse if it's not managed the way it should be.
There's also less regulations on marketing now, because you can post on social media all you want. You can post with digital advertising, there's a little less regulations than there probably would have been for traditional advertising, like billboards and certain print material. There's someone who's looking at it, who, is editing this stuff before it goes out. That's how it used to be. But now you've got this digital aspect where you've got all of these robots that are going through and deciding what can and can't stay. And so there are very easy ways that you can go around the rules, especially for things like this. There's wording, there's messaging. I mean, we know that because we sometimes have to reword messaging all the time just to make it.
Yeah, you can go on AI now and say, hey, how do I get around this regulation? And they'll tell you how.
Yeah.
It's even easier than we would think.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
So even with having a phone in your hand, having these kids have this ability to the internet at any point, do you think communities today are more aware of how addictive products are, or less aware?
My knee-jerk reaction is less aware. And you just alluded to it, in that the more something becomes normal, the more it becomes normal. And you grow up in our times, and when you go to the grocery store and you buy a piece of meat, or you go to Walmart and buy a loaf of bread, you assume that that's good to consume because it's been checked by the FDA or who, the state agriculture department, that our food is being checked on what we are ingesting. You go into a vape store and your kid picks up something, starts ingesting it, or you starting ingesting it. It's not been checked or balanced by anyone. It's come straight in here from who knows where. And that's where my hope is that there's a bill laying there waiting to pass this year in Charleston that's going to put some regulations on there. And when folks read that bill, they're going to be surprised that none of that stuff was already there. Let me read you a couple of them. I jotted down a few of what's on that bill. So the new vape bill does the things that I'm going to tell you that it does has never been done in vape stores. So if you think about it, they have to have a license. You would think that if you see a store like that with flashing lights, that had a license, but they don't. They can only sell authorized vape products. That's the big one. They have to be checked. There's violations and fines for those things. You have to be a U.S. citizen. Background checks. There has to be. It provides for oversight. The license aren't transferable to the next guy. There's annual fees, location restrictions, which our county did. There's signage restrictions, which our county did. There's going to be a directory for the product, so you kind of know what you're getting there. But these are all things that everyone walking into a store in the United States would assume has already been checked and balanced.
You would think. I mean, I would hope that if you're buying a vape, that you're buying a product. I mean, it is written on them. This is an addictive product. But you would think that they would at least be regulated in a way to know that it's safe. It's crazy to think it's not that unauthorized.
I truly have a deep concern for 10 to 15 years from now what these children 10, 15 years older could be suffering from in their lungs or their brains or whatever. And all the, my goodness, you see them everywhere you go. Everyone's got a vape, and it's just that they don't understand. A lot of them do not understand that these products have not been checked or balanced or.
And it's cool. It's cool. And you can do it. You can smoke it inside. And like, there's so many things to it. And I think what's difficult too is we know what cigarettes do. We've got decades and centuries of proof to show what cigarettes do to your lungs.
Yeah. Now we're using a chemical instead of tobacco products. Mm-hmm. It's insane to me that, the amount of that stuff comes, and they do target us because let's just say that you're not smoking THC or a tobacco product and you're just doing it for the flavor. What you don't realize is that the AI will tell these stores, hey, you sold way more vanilla flavor than you did any other flavor. So they flood the market with vanilla flavor so they can addict you more to the vanilla flavor. And you're still putting chemicals in your body based on the flavor. The tobacco may not kill you, but the chemical might. But just the uncertainty of it is very alarming, and they're bad players in our community.
So going back to sort of the marketing behind these advertising is that I just want to reiterate that marketing often happens through visibility and normalization, and that's what these are. When businesses place multiple stores together, it's not random. Visibility itself acts as marketing, as advertising. And so seeing something everywhere kind of sends that subtle signal that the product is normal and widely accepted, and especially for youth or people whose brains aren't fully developed. I mean, these are kids. So whether they're in high school or not, they're kids, and that frontal lobe has not quite developed just yet. And so it's easier. And these nicotine products, they know that the earlier they can addict someone, the more likely they are to be a lifetime customer. And so, of course, that's what they're going to try to do. Of course, they're going to try to get the younger they are. Of course, they're going to do that because why wouldn't they? If the statistics prove, and they do, that the younger you start, the longer you stay.
I would gamble that the statistics would also show that the parents are also using the vape, and when they get the kid, the parents buying both of them. Mm-hmm. And it's a vicious cycle. And it's a cycle that we've been seeing forever. We've been seeing it since the tobacco. We've been seeing it since the 70s and 80s and before that. I mean, it's the same playbook.
Yeah. So we've been pushing back in Raleigh County, and the county commission and all of you guys have been working to push back against this in Raleigh County. So what can other communities do to start, pushing back on this? Because it's not only happening in Raleigh County. That this is spread statewide, Appalachia wide.
I would like to send the message to the users: don't be a sucker. Don't use it, and then they can't. If they don't have a market to sell it, then they're not contaminating our people. It starts with the user, and everything we do in prevention, in recovery, and in treatment. It's all about the user. We're trying to save their lives. We're trying to give them mechanisms to get them off the addiction, or recover from the health issue that they have gotten because of the addiction, or whatever. It's about the user, and unless people quit using, we're always going to have those bad players finding a way to get their product to us. So.
Right. So, any other kind of thoughts before we start closing this up?
I don't think. I like "Don't Be a Sucker."
I like "Don't Be a Sucker." You said that, I was like, that should be on a T-shirt. Don't be a sucker. That's 2 episodes in a row that we've talked about needing a T-shirt with something said on it. Marketing isn't loud or obvious. Not always. Sometimes it's simply putting something everywhere until people stop questioning it. So we need to work to go against this, and we need to work to prevent this. The growth of the vape shops isn't just a policy issue or a business issue. It's a marketing issue. It's a visibility issue. And if we can kind of be more aware of that going into it, that you're not affected by that marketing, and that you don't see that and think, oh man, this is, maybe this is something I should try. When communities understand how that normalization works, they become better equipped to protect the next generation from adding this into their lives. So where can we go? Where can someone go if they want to learn more about what the West Virginia First Foundation is doing?
WestVirginiaFirst.org. And we're real excited about that website. So everything is on there. We're very transparent. The financials are there. The newest programs are. We're in the middle of our 3rd grant cycle, and the awardees and the amounts, everything's on there. We just recently we're entering a contract with WVU up there. We're going to be doing a needs assessment, and that's really exciting because I'm not sure exactly where all that's going, but it's going to be big. It's going to be a portal where people can go get help. It's going to be a portal where people can find money. It's all right there.
Great.
Real excited to have people navigate to that website.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate you being a part of this and talking about it. Good seeing you again. Maybe I'll see you later.
Yeah, great seeing you.
So thank you all so much for joining the Pondcast, where we stop winging it and start getting strategic. If you want to learn more about what GoDuck is doing, go to goduckmedia.com. If you are looking for some marketing, we're here to help. Thanks, everybody.